Hey, Leonard Geddes here, founder of the Learn Well projects, where my mission is to make learning more visible, more manageable, and more effective. So I'm here today to share with you a short overview of how the Learn Well projects does reporting through our trench data dashboard analytics. So if you're seeing this, you've already likely seen a demonstration of the dashboard. However, this is reporting season for me here in November. So I'm going to share with you a condensed version of the reporting. Now, when we do reporting institutionally, I should say that the reports are a little bit longer than what you're going to see here, but I'm just going to show you the highlight, particularly of how the reports bring institutional synergy and how they help reveal what I call solutions hidden in plain sight. One of the things that I've seen consistently in the institutions that I've worked with is that oftentimes they're spending a lot of time, energy, resources, and so forth on trying to find solutions. Faculty will go to conferences or they'll have some external, solution come in, when in fact the solutions are in plain sight. And those solutions can be found and discovered through the Learning Center, because the Learning Center is the only entity on campus where they're sitting down with students and are trying to help students navigate their minds and how they go about doing academic work. So my academic workstation framework, Trench Data Dashboard, is the only enrollment management, retention, student persistence, or I like to say enrollment health dashboard that is built on an academic work framework. So you'll see a little bit about what that means as we move forward. So let's jump right in. So first I want to show the steps that we use in training. It's pretty simple. We train folks on the academic workstation framework model, those 7 universal academic stations, shifting the approach from task and content-based assistance to an upgraded from shifting the assistance from a task and content-based model to a process-based model using the 7 universal academic stations. Step 2, we then show folks how to integrate the academic workstation framework survey into their normal interactions with students. So if folks are already tutoring students, they're already coaching, they're already doing supplemental instruction and so forth, well, this model integrates directly into their normal interaction. So they'll be able to use the survey to extract the insights from their normal work. Step 3, then there's data collection and there's analysis, and that's where we analyze the station usage, we analyze the drivers that are supporting those stations, and then that all leads to step 4, which is the precise reporting. And that's what differentiates us, I think, most, is that the reporting that you get from the Learn Well projects based on our trench data model, they are extremely useful at creating synergy within the institution, and they provide precise input on the solutions. So here's an executive summary that we might start out with, and this is based on an actual discovery at a school, is that you see that we talked about how the trench data not only reveals a hidden problem for students and throughout the institutional learning environment, but it also validates a solution through our triangulation method. So let me say a little bit about that. Many institutions try to justify their services or show their value to the institution by correlating usage with some type of end result, whether that be grades or so forth. Correlations are kind of hard to make, but triangulation, when you're taking 3 different data set points and you're triangulating them together, is a much stronger argument and stands up to much more institutional scrutiny. And more importantly, we're actually revealing, what as I like to call, unlocking the black box. Yes, it's useful to know how many students are using your services and where they come from, but what's even more useful, if we can crack open the black box and show precisely the tactics, tools, and practices that we're using to elevate student performance. And that's what you'll see here moving forward. So I'm going to go through these slides quickly. You may want to go back and look at these. And if you share them with someone, you may want to encourage them to do the same. Just for brevity's sake, I'm respectful of your time. So I'm going to just go through these and allow you to pause where needed. So this is sort of where the rubber hits the road. It's the performance on exam. And as you can see in the gray column, that's before we started working with students. These are students coming through the Learning Center from various courses. And then exam 2 and 3 in the other columns, you can see the improvement after the intervention. And as you can see at the top level column here, the average student had some significant improvement in their, let me get my little tool out to draw here. So the average student here saw some significant improvement in their, I'm going to change colors here. The average student saw some significant improvement here over the course of the intervention. And we oftentimes focus on at risk because, as you'll see later, chief academic officers and other people, that's something that they're often mindful of. And you can see that it did significantly improve the performance of the at-risk students. But if our solutions are really based on academic work, then we should also see them benefit all students. And as you can see here, high achieving students had some gains as well. And that really makes me excited because we want to show that our solutions impact all students. Students who are at the bottom will improve significantly more because they have more to gain, but students at the top should see benefits as well as students throughout the academic continuum. Moving along. Let me clear my screen here. So next you see some perception data that we collect for institutions, or institutions actually collect this themselves oftentimes. And students can't truly have self-confidence unless and until they have certain academic work competencies that they own, that they can articulate, that they can identify. And as you can see here, you see a sort of scaffolding up from not really knowing much about the problem here at the bottom to where this making meaningful relationships. Sorry, let me back us up here. Making meaningful relationships with the 3 C's. That's a tool that we use when we're working with learning centers to show them how to help students negotiate some of the academic elements in academic work, to the course making sense, to then them taking responsibility for their learning because they now feel more empowered. Next, as you can see, faculty perceptions. Each stakeholder has different values or different things they outcome within the institution. Faculty value observable improvements in students' ability to do academic work. They're not so concerned about enrollment things. They want to see if students are becoming better thinkers, better learners, and the Learning Center could be and should be a major contributor to those conversations. And as you can see here, faculty are showing that before mid-semester and end of term, how students are gaining certain academic competencies. So here in this institution, what we discovered is that the very way that faculty were trained to organize their course, if you think about it, you have a sequence of material and you go from topic A to topic B to topic C. Well, that very sequence, which is valuable by itself, was actually undermining students by preventing them from having to do a type of mental work that exams require. So students in this institution would do very well on quizzes and homework and problem sets that were given throughout the week, but then when it came to exams, their scores would lag significantly behind their quiz and test scores. And here you can see some of the observations that faculty made based on our work with them of what they saw in students' performance that led to that improvement in grades. So it's not just the grade improvements, it's also faculty seeing an actual why those grades are improving. Next, I always say there's some things your dashboard should do for you. And one of the things here is your dashboard should take your institution and provide information in 3 directions. Your data should push in 3 directions. Inward, in terms of Learning Center, it should be an engine of innovation, validation, and provide scalable solutions because you have the ability to validate those solutions through your work with students. The second direction is downward. Students should, your dashboard should be readable and usable to students. At all the institutions that I've worked with, and you'll see in the video that I use to support this, faculty saying how students are using this data to transform how they do academic work. So if your dashboard is only being used by institutional leaders and it's not being used daily by students, then it's falling short of what it could do for you. And so for students, it should show academic competence and instill confidence within them because they're gaining control over their academic work. The next direction is outward, in meaning that the work that learning centers do, since it's dealing with the other side of academic work, the outside of the classroom of academic work, which research says that 80% of academic work in college happens outside of the classroom. Well, then the other direction is your data should push outward, meaning it should show faculty how they can complement the work that students are doing away from class by certain instructional enhancements. And again, in those supporting videos, you'll hear faculty talk about, from Geddes University specifically, talk about how it changed how they interacted with students and interacted with each other. And then lastly, your data should push upward. The institution is always focused on certain strategic priorities, whether that be, and they're usually linked to enrollment, whether that be a certain academic culture they want to create. Many will say a culture of academic excellence, or they may want to improve performance among a certain cohort of students, whether it be by program or something along those lines. Well, the Learning Center should be in the forefront of those strategic conversations, seen as an asset, not as a liability or cost center. It should be seen as a vehicle for driving those institutional priorities. And one of the unique things about trench data, I should say, is that it's not based on any of those demographic identifiers that have fallen out of favor due to the Supreme Court ruling and the on affirmative action and the current federal government stance against using demographic data. So it doesn't use any demographic data. So it is completely federally compliant. And ultimately, what your data should do for you, your data dashboard should do for you, it should break down silos and create institutional synergy. So here's an example, a snapshot of a Learning Center report. The purpose of this report is you want to show your institutional value, your diagnostic power, and that you are of strategic importance. And as you can see here, the key finding here is that the data identified that students struggle with this conceptual distinguishing, causing a stall out at about 68% on exams. The intervention, we saw that after integrating specific out-of-class and in-class complementary actions, in this particular case, that means that we were doing things outside of the classroom through the Learning Center, but then there was a dialogue between faculty where they were implementing things based on the data, that we saw exam scores rise significantly, as you can see here. And then students self-reported increases in their clarity, confidence, and conceptual connectedness, which are all some of the metrics that we're looking for, that we know that if students can do these things, they're going to see an improvement in their performance. And then they also reported a stronger sense of course coherence. The course is not broken down, is no longer siloed off for them in weeks, but they see the overall picture, which if you've worked with students enough and you talk to faculty, that is one of the core things that students miss. And again, that's supported in the video that you'll hear from faculty sharing their experience with that later. Faculty reported increases in students' ability to take material across the week concepts and mull on them and develop them and get to the bottom of those concepts and grow them. And also an improvement in course discourse, which is something that usually happens because of the insight that students and faculty in the institution is gaining and the similarities that they're all seeing the same problem, that the discourse enhances in the course. And then faculty, of course, also talked about how the mean scores, you don't just see certain students improve, but you see the overall mean scores shift upwards. And lastly, the sort of takeaway point from the Learning Center is that you weren't just helping students, but that you discovered a hidden performance gap and validated a scalable solution. That is gold to an institution, and that will avoid you from getting your budget cut to seeing your budgets increased and your staffing increased because you're not seen as a cost center, but you are a key strategic revenue driver. Next, the academic, let me clear up my screen here. What does reporting look like to academic administrators, provosts, chief academic officers? They're very busy. That you can give them a longer report, but here's a couple of top line items that I took from the report to show you that they really value. One is the institution faced a structural learning gap. They're looking at the bigger picture, and that was this weak conceptual integration skill. And so through intervention, the data shows that there was a 24-point institutional lift from students who developed this skill. And then it also boosts equity. Again, they're sometimes looking at those types of reports. Again, that equity can be first generation. However we look at it, again, we don't use the demographic data, demographic indicators. And then lastly, the impact is that you had a low cost, high impact transformation that's scalable across divisions. That speaks volumes to those academic administrators who are oftentimes focused on retention, accreditation, and academic excellence. The next audience or stakeholder is faculty. Faculty chairs and deans, they need to see the value of the Learning Center. But their concerns are a little different than administrators. They're looking at core teaching issues. Like they care about their course, they care about their discipline. And so one of the things you can show them is that students are mastering content weekly, but not across the exams, but not across weeks. And that manifests on poor exam performance. And faculty really enjoy this because it brings depth to an experience that they're having in their classes, where students seem to get the material in class, but then later they seem to perform poorly. In my experience, oftentimes faculty will believe that students are cheating and that's why they aren't doing well, when in fact, again, that's always a possibility. But when you can show that, no, you've actually developed and shown a solution that has improved those scores, well, then it gets them beyond the students are cheating narrative to, hey, here's a solution that's actually improving student performance. And you see the levels of performance here. And then the implication overall is that you have improved student performance, you have better course evals, and then you also have program persistence, which is what faculty, chairs, and deans care about. Not just students doing well in the early courses and faltering out, but they want to see students sustain across. And in the video that you'll see supporting this, faculty talk specifically about how students come in and they don't just do well in introductory courses, but that they're taking these skills and killing it in upper level courses as well. And then you see a proven course neutral instructional improvement. So a faculty chair or a dean would look at this and say, well, here's something that we can show across our program or our department that can help all faculty. It's not just specific to content in a specific course. So that's valuable to them. That Learning Center should be sharing this. Teaching and learning centers, those are other partners or stakeholders that we should be mindful of, and they're looking for pedagogical insights. And so one of the things that we've shown at this institution is that conceptual distinguishing must be strategically taught, not only assessed. So this conceptual distinguishing, before we revealed this, was embedded in exams, but because that was the only in the first place that students were exposed to it, they would not be able to engage in that type of high level types of thinking. But when they were able to strategically incorporate it in the course, students gained the practice that they needed throughout the weeks so that on exams, they were able to easily transfer that skill. And so we give some recommended practices that we use for that institution. Those have greater meaning in the larger report. And then we also see that the results are that strong gains in clarity and integrative thinking, which faculty really like. And then the implications is that faculty have more impactful instruction, less reteaching, which is what faculty really love that. And then they also report a reduced workload because students are able to complement the work that faculty are doing in the class. Faculty don't have to teach as much to students. They don't have to have the reteaching sessions where students are coming to their office following a lecture to be retaught the same material, but that students can now learn the material much deeper. And then, as I mentioned, your data should be pushed to students as well. And so students, what do I mean by students? People in your learning center, but also proactively The Learning Center should be working with student affairs, if you're not positioned under student affairs, to work with student organizations, because most student organizations have somebody who is responsible for academic performance for their group. It may be a Greek organization, it may be a religious organization, or just a general campus organization, athletics, so on and so forth. But you need to show how the things that you're doing are improving student performance in ways that they want to become allies and work with you. That's how you transform the campus, and you move your services from just people coming to you, but you are going out proactively on an offensive mindset, building academic culture. And so the implication of this is that students want to know that they're getting better grades, that there's less stress, and they have less wasted effort. And as you can see on here, since this report goes out to students, students are in an emoji generation, so we include emojis that really speaks to them. And overall, their grades improved and they save time, which are important to students. Another stakeholder is enrollment managers. You may have heard me write about a lot about enrollment management, that right now, a lot of the enrollment management solutions, they all come from technology companies that are sort of masquerading as academic institutions. And so the enrollment management folks are very stressed, and they're trying to figure out how they can improve enrollment, because a lot of times the weight of the institution, as one enrollment manager told me, they feel like the weight of the institution falls on their shoulders, particularly if you're at a private, smaller institution. And so one of the things you can show is that we want to move from enrollment management, I think, to enrollment health, which is a different notion. Enrollment health is about improving academic work through improving enrollment through academic work, as opposed to some type of gimmicks or marketing workarounds. So here you want to show that that this academic clarity that the Learning Center discovered improved persistence and went to term retention. So students aren't just building in one particular academic course, but they're seeing these gains contribute across courses. And again, the video that you'll see accompanying this, faculty report that thing that they notice in their own courses. You see, talks about the at-risk population, and talks about retention lift, that you're seeing the retention improve, which of course equates to dollars, and that all makes a lot of sense. The implication is that academic improvement is contributing to enrollment gains. You want to show that that's going to enhance your value to that particular stakeholder, and that strong academic drive, the strong academics drive stable enrollment. And then the last one that I want to talk about is the institution as a whole. Again, if data is done right, the institution should be able to leap forward. And because you've identified a core learning bottleneck that affects multiple courses, and there's been an implemented scalable improvement that you've shown, then the implication should be that the academic success metrics and the institutional financial metrics are now aligned. Oftentimes they're going in different directions, but when an institution can align those metrics, then it really does enhance the institution, because at our core, higher education is about academic work. And so now the institution can operate in a proactive academic posture, as opposed to seeing the Learning Center as a defensive or reactive entity that's just taking students who aren't doing well, but the Learning Center is now contributing to the growth of the institution. And then lastly, you may have heard me talk about this lately, that I believe that if learning centers don't claim their proper value, then campus leaders will keep elevating what I believe are inferior fixes that chase false metrics while eroding our institution's core mission. And so these methods will make us weaker, not stronger, and they'll make us dependent, not more independent. And I'm thankful to say that the institutions that I've worked with have been able to not only see enrollment growth, but they've also seen enrollment health, which is where students are coming in, they're succeeding in their chosen majors, and faculty and student relationships are growing healthier, and faculty to faculty relationships are growing healthier. That's a different environment, and I think that's something that Trench Data is definitely contributing to. So I hope this shares with you a little bit about our reporting, how it differs, how it brings everything together. So after you look at this and look at the videos where faculty are sharing their own perspectives, then I'd love to hear from you if you have any questions. But I'd love to work with you to see how Trench Data and the Academic Workstation Framework can help you achieve your highest ambitious goals. Thanks.